So I want to throw in another screener that I saw, which is another film about women. Ukraine is not a brothel.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So this is a documentary about a movement, a protest movement in Ukraine called Femen. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a protest movement of women who go out onto the streets and they go topless and they scream slogans and they're very adamant and they force the police to kind of drag them away. It's very, hardcore protesting. And they're very popular. They sell merchandise and there's a lot of attention drawn to them because they're very pretty women who are taking their tops off, and people want to take pictures of that, and so they get a lot of attention.
Do they have an agenda specifically, or am I skipping ahead too far?
Their idea is the idea ostensibly is that they want to bring awareness to women's rights because the Ukraine is a lot of mail order brides come from the Ukraine,
brothels.
There's a lot of brothels. So their idea is that they want to bring awareness to this idea. However, what this film does that's so interesting, at first it's sort of like rah, rah, femen, rah, rah. Mm-hmm. And then it starts to really look at what's happening. And it turns out that the whole thing is run by a guy named Victor. He is the leader of Femen. This is not a movement by and for women. This is a movement by a guy who tells the women where to go and what slogans to chant and all of that. And at that point, it turns on a dime, and all of a sudden you're watching what's essentially, it's almost like the Spice Girls. All of a sudden, it's like it doesn't seem to be about the movement. It doesn't seem to be about protesting. It seems to be about making money.
A business, sure.
And it seems like this guy, Victor, was very reluctant to get on camera, but once they got him on camera, they were able to get a lot of footage of him berating these women to say, no, you didn't protest right. You didn't have this slogan. You weren't there at the right time. I told you have to get dragged. And I mean, he's screaming and calling them awful names. And it's like you can't take the movement seriously anymore. And I'm not sure if this was something that happened during the making of, that they sort of realized, oh, wow, this is something totally different.
It's a whole different story about a puppet master almost.
Yeah. Or maybe it's changing. I don't know. But this film sort of shines a light on this, and it turns into something very, very different. Now, they do an interview with Victor, and he does sort of recognize the contradiction. He does say flat out, yes, I am a product of this sort of patriarchal system. Mm-hmm. And he claims that this is totally legit, that he's doing this to like help the women, get the women's issues out there and sort of help them realize their goals. But when you see him and they don't point the camera at him, they just sort of have the camera pointed down, and that tells you a lot. That they knew they couldn't point that camera at him while he's screaming at these women. But they have all sorts of audio, and they have like phone conversations where he's sort of like telling the women like what to do and where to go, and just his tone and the way it goes. It's very hard to take this seriously as a protest movement at that point.
Well, it's almost, it makes me wonder, obviously with something like, Pussy Riot, where
that's exact. Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like,
well.
That's where it kind of gets divided. I think. I don't believe there's anybody other than women behind the Pussy Riot movement. So that is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
that they perhaps went into it thinking like, oh yeah, we're going to showcase this female movement, and it clearly is not.
But it was interesting. Even before that, the film starts to like drop in hints that not everything is on the up and up.
Sure.
Like part of the protest all of the female protesters are like very attractive women. Right. All of them except for one. And they do an interview with her, and she's not an attractive woman, and she says, "Yeah, if I'm involved in the protest, it's usually because it's a joke, or they want to make fun of me, or this or that." And she clearly is not super excited about doing this stuff. I don't know exactly why she does it.
Well, my question was going to be to that end, when they're interviewing the women, what is their take on this? What do they see their role as in this? Are they making money, or is this a job to them?
I don't know exactly because the film is structured in such a way for the first hour, you're sort of like, okay, this is a legit, everything is on the up and up. These women are running their own show and all of that. And then it turns. And then it's like, and the other interesting thing about it is when, so the documentarian sort of asks a direct question to one of the women. She says, who's the leader of Femen?
Right.
And she sort of sits there for a minute and she looks at him. She's like, has Victor been on camera yet?
I see.
And it's like
so even they're aware that there is a facade. And they're a part of that facade. And you have to. I mean, clearly Victor's not the nicest of.
Yeah. But the film drops a lot of hints early on that like they're very concerned with the brand of Femen. They're very concerned about their brand. They want to make sure they can sell their merchandise. They have their own team of photographers that goes everywhere with them.
Fascinating.
That are not part of the press, that are photographers for them.
Right.
To make sure that pictures get taken of what they're doing. And you start out thinking, wow, these women are in a very dangerous situation because it shows the people sort of, protesting against them and how brutally they're treated by the police. And it's like, wow, these women are really standing up for what they believe in, and that's amazing. And then the film turns it and shatters that image.
Interesting.
Well,
fascinating.
I have two questions regarding that. Despite this sort of perhaps being a facade, does it feel like their movement is helping?
That was not made clear.
Okay.
That was not made clear. However, at the end of the film, one of the women does leave the movement to go to Paris. And it doesn't seem like she's running away, but it also doesn't seem like she's super sad about leaving.
That's sort of the happy ending?
A little. I don't know about a happy ending.
But I mean, trying to end on some sort of positive note.
I think so.
I mean, what does that say about the documentary? If the person's leaving, that's the silver lining.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting message to be sending.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my other question, I guess, would be, does it perhaps lead to a conversation where obviously the facade is women running their own group, but does that lead to a conversation where it doesn't necessarily a female organization led by a man, can that actually exist and still have a positive? I mean, obviously this guy is not doing a lot of good things for guys in terms of running that stuff, but what roles do men have in women's movements, and what roles do women have in men's movements? Can that exist?
And this guy who runs it, Victor, who he sort of makes the argument that like he had, and it's kind of. He kind of
probably not helping himself or our guys at all.
It doesn't. It doesn't actually sound good at all. But he sort of makes the argument that like, I'm fighting against my own patriarchal, things as well. And they're a product of the system. I'm a product of the system, and we're trying to do something different. We're trying to at least give something different. But they bring it up. Absolutely, they say yes. It is weird that I'm a man running this movement.
Okay.
About women's rights, and they're upfront about that. But I don't know what the filmmaker's intention was. If they really were just completely like, we're just going to be observers of this and show you what we saw, that's amazing. I don't know if they had an agenda. It reads like they did not have an agenda, and they're just showing us what happened.
The thread as it unraveled.
Yeah. And for that reason, it's a really good documentary, but it totally shatters the image of this protest movement, as far as I'm concerned. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.